and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about a fairy tale and a ballad that have a lot in common. These are The Singing Bone by the Grimm Brothers and the Two Sisters, Child Ballad number 10. Just fair warning, despite what you might think about fairy tales, these are both pretty gruesome stories. In The Singing Bone, two brothers go out to kill a wild boar in order to marry a princess. One of them succeeds, and the other one murders him and takes the boar for himself and goes and marries the princess. The body of the one who was murdered lays there and decays, and eventually all that's left are the bones. And a traveler makes one of the bones into a mouthpiece for a musical instrument. When he plays the musical instrument, it tells the murdered man's story. In Child Ballad number 10, a guy courts two sisters at the same time, and one of them murders the other one out of jealousy, often by pushing her into a body of water. There are different variations that involve different ways of the truth coming out, or that just end with the body being found. However, there's a version where either her bones and or her hair are used as parts for a musical instrument. The hair, by the way, if you're wondering how that works, it becomes like the strings on a string instrument. In any case, when the instrument is played, it tells the story of how the woman was murdered. So those are both very similar in a lot of ways, but there are some key differences. They're both about sets of siblings, although one a set of brothers and the other one a set of sisters. And in both cases, there's a deadly love triangle involved. However, the ballad version actually makes it more of a romantic entanglement, whereas the other one, there's no clue that these two have even met the princess or have genuine feelings for her or that she might have a preference between them. It's all very transactional, like, go accomplish this difficult, dangerous task and you can marry the princess as your reward. Whereas the version in the ballad has the guy actually actively courting the two women, leading to jealousy between them. One of the other differences is the question of whether this involves royalty or ordinary people. In some versions of the ballad, the parents are specifically the king and the queen, so this was a princess who was murdered. But in other versions, she's just an ordinary woman. In the fairy tale, it's two ordinary guys, or at least they're never mentioned to be royalty, but they're wanting to marry a princess. One really important thing that these two stories have in common, though, is that they both center around someone being murdered and then the truth inevitably coming to light, in ways that require some kind of supernatural intervention. In the versions of the ballad where the body is just found and that's the end of the story, there's no hint that the murderous sister would ever be caught. It's only in the versions where there's either a ghost or the thing with the musical instrument or something of that nature that the truth actually is brought to light. And the same thing in The Singing Bone. It would never have been found out if that instrument hadn't been made. I think that speaks to our desire for justice. When something bad happens, we want to see whoever is responsible brought to justice. And a lot of fairy tales and ballads have that aspect to them. There are plenty of fairy tales where someone does something horrible and the protagonist suffers for it throughout the entire story, and then by the end the truth is revealed. That happens in other ballads as well. The theme of the siblings turning against each other is something that feels very much like a fairy tale thing, because siblings being antagonistic toward each other is extremely common in fairy tales. In fact, the stories where the siblings got along are pretty few and far between. And the idea that in that version, one of the brothers goes out hunting the boar while the other one stops at a tavern and gets drunk and then waits until his brother comes back with the boar and kills him for it. That's something that also reminds me a huge amount of other fairy tales that I've read. For instance, in The Golden Bird, which is another Grimm Brothers fairy tale, three brothers are sent out to find the golden bird, and the first two don't follow instructions and end up staying in the wrong inn and not getting any further in their journey. But the youngest one does exactly what he's supposed to up until the moment that he doesn't, and then goes on a series of other adventures. He ends up coming home not only with the golden bird, but with several other important things as well, and with a princess he wants to marry. At which point his brothers betray him and try to murder him, and the fox that he helped earlier in the story and that he took advice from is the only reason that he makes it out alive. So it's a kind of similar idea, except in that version he does survive, and things end well for him and poorly for the brothers who betrayed him. However, the ballad version also feels very much like a ballad. There are plenty of deadly love triangles and people who commit murder over being frustrated in love and all kinds of stuff like that in ballads. So neither one really feels like a ballad adapted into a fairy tale or vice versa, but they are very, very similar stories that I'm sure must have a common origin, despite being from two different genres of folklore. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it and you want to see more from me, be sure to subscribe. I post new videos on Mondays and Thursdays.